Well, another thing I'm going to add to this bus is an ammeter, which is this gauge right here. It shows how much power you're drawing. And I'm tickled pink because you have to, an ammeter uses a shunt, and basically if you can measure the value across between these two poles, see there's two big poles and wires going to them. If you can measure what's going across them, or if you know the resistance of that, you can calculate how many amps you're running. So this is one off of another bus. The shunt here is kind of expensive, but I found junk one off of another TC, and I'm so tickled pink because up here in the frame, all those same wires, they just go to one pole right there, and so you just unbolt it and bolt it on where it's supposed to go. So I'm tickled pink about that. So we're gonna, and I noticed all the wiring is under the dash for this already. It's just, you pay for an extra option, you get the shunt and the gauge. Other than that, all the wiring's there. Alright, so here's the shunt, there's the post off. You can see right here, that's where the shunt was. Let me see if I can dim this down a little bit. That'd be a little bit better. Or maybe this. That's a little bit better. What's kind of cool is this shunt. The hole's already drilled there for it. And there's a hole there, and there's one back there where the old one was, and this will just bolt right up there. Alright, there we go. We got her all installed. While I'm down here, though, I'm going to fix a few wiring things. If you look here, I'm going to change this light. Brighten it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so there's a broken wire right there. There's, looks like the end of it right there. This one's punctured and corroded right there, that white thing. And there's a broken one. Right there. And that solenoid. I don't know what it's for, but... So, I think I should do a couple wiring repairs here. Alright, now we're going to add that ammeter gauge right here. And I got a drill right here, hole saw, and we'll just put the hole there and put it where it goes. Alright, I got a hole drilled in here. I had to burr away a little bit of these, the diamond plate edge that sticks up because the gauge sits a little bit on here and the diamond plate's not flat. I think I might need to burn a little more off of that one real quick. Alright, so here's a recap. Next day, got this ammeter gauge in, and I'll show you here that it's working. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Turn the key on, and we'll go ahead and turn some stuff on. And you can see as I turn on more electrical power, it's drawing amps. And I shut the stuff off, and it goes back to zero. See what happens when I start turning on fans. It only drops back a little bit. Looks like we're working. Now, if you're wondering how I knew how to wire all this in as far as the ammeter and the shunt, here's the old post here. When I went to the junkyard and I got that shunt out of that bus, I cut the wires, and that way they were attached and I knew which wires went where. And then also when I got this gauge set here, I started cutting this harness out, and then I realized, oh, I just unplugged, so I unplugged it so I could take the harness with. And I noticed this ammeter here was connected to these three wires. Well, actually, there's another one for the illumination, but these are the main ones. You got the solid black one here is a ground, and then here and here, you got two wires that have white stripes on them. Yeah, John, focus. There you go. You can see the white stripe. This other one's got a white stripe. And I noticed on that shunt on one post there was a white, small wire with a white stripe, and then on the other one, same thing. I noticed down there, one of the ones with the white stripe was thicker than the other. And you can kind of see it here, this one on the top here. Not the ground one here, but this one on the top where my thumb's touching. The one underneath, they have white stripes. One's thicker than the other. And I noticed same thing was on the posts of that shunt, and the same thing went to this gauge. So it's actually pretty cool because they've got stuff that it's pre-wired in this the harness here for extra options. Like, for instance, in this gauge cluster, this bus had hydraulic brakes, because if it had air brakes, it would have another gauge right here for air brakes, and I think they just had this pre-wired to go. This one, see, it's got this circle thing right there. That's a round terminal or whatever. And some of these, I think this one's got a spade terminal in there, but they're wired up and ready to go. In fact, these had power to them already, because they were all on one post, and then I separated them between the two posts, but other than that, man, ready to go. So I'm going to start working on this. I'm going to cut this out because that radio is not going to fit in here. This is old style. It has the knobs that go through. So, Fortunate thing is, if you want an easy way to cut this out, you need a template. You can just guess. I can kind of see on here. There we go. You can kind of see where the mark is, where the radio was, and that's what you need to cut out. But the easier thing to do, get you something like this. So there's your template. Alright, I'm going to use the cutoff wheel. Cut this out. Alright, there's the cutoff wheel. I got the hole cut out. It's warped a little bit because it got hot, but we can straighten that out pretty easy because it's aluminum, and I'm going to take a file here and go ahead and clean up these edges. Thankfully aluminum's pretty soft and you can clean it up real easy. Perfect. Got the radio in here. It works, but I need to put a new antenna cord on because the people that decided my radio that they needed it more than I did, they just cut it, which is silly because it just plugs in the back. So I think I'm going to work on that next. It's a little high up, so I'm going to use the pickup truck and a ladder technique. I've only got 2 of these antennas left because I've been using them, but I originally bought these by mistake. This is actually, there you go, an antenna extension cord if you need something longer, but this is all we need because it's right by the radio. Yeah, that's not a hillbilly repair done by me years ago at all, is it? Alright, all installed. Needed 2 people to do it, and I got it caulked up, so hopefully it won't leak water on me. Wow, what a hole! Alright, there's actually, this is an inspection cover right here, and you look down in there, and put the light in there. That is your fuel tank sending unit. That one wire there comes off, and that's what reads the fuel gauge. Fuel gauge is not reading correct on this, so either we got something going on, but this is where I'm going to start to check it. I'm going to pull that wire off, and full ground is going to make it go one way, and open, unhook it, it'll go the other way in the gauge, and we'll see if the gauge is working, and if it's reading correctly, if it's a bad float, or if something else. So let's get that off. Well, the wire's off, so let's see what the gauge reads. Alright, tells me the gauge is working correctly because it went straight to full, so I think we got a bad float in there. We'll also test it. We'll put that to ground and see what happens. It should go to empty now. Alright, we got my test lead here going up to ground. Let's see what we get. It should read empty now if the gauge is working correctly. Is that full? And it goes right to the bottom. Alright, let's pull that sending unit out and see what's going on. Alright, you can see there's a hole there now. The float, or the sending unit's out. This is what the sending unit looks like. It's in the tank there. That's where it bolts on. The sender wire attaches right there. And there's a float right here. And as that float changes, as the level changes, it gives different resistance, which is what the gauge is measuring. It's not actually measuring fuel level. It's measuring resistance from this sending unit. So anyway, I'll tell you what the problem is, if you can hear real closely. You hear that? Well, it's real quiet, but this float, it has fuel in it, so it is leaked, and therefore it's no longer got buoyancy, and it's not going to float, so it's not going to measure anything. So it just sits here at the bottom of the tank. In fact, you know what? You can look right there if you focus. I can see a shiny spot at the bottom of this thing, which has been sitting on the bottom of the tank, which is why it's telling us we have no fuel. That's why it's showing empty all the time when it's got fuel. So I found some of these floats on eBay, so I'm going to order one up. I have replaced this one once before, actually, when I had this tank off. And, well, that is our problem. Alright, we got some goodies here to go ahead and fix our fuel tank, well, the gauge, I guess, fuel tank sending unit. So we got the old float right there. I ordered a new one, and then I found you can buy one of these that's plastic. It still clips on there the same way with the brass, but it shouldn't crack, fill up, and lose buoyancy and sink like the old one there. But I've got that one just in case, but if this lasts another 20 years, I'll be happy with that. This gasket was pretty bad, so I ordered this package here that comes with 5 gaskets. There you go, it's international part number. You can see the diamond up there. I don't know if this is a standard thing. I just thought I'd try and order it. One thing to note is the sending unit does go in a certain way, and these holes are not symmetric that are on here. So anyway, I think this is the right thing. We'll see if it'll match up, and we'll put it on. There we go. That's the right gasket. That's how it goes. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not on this camera, John, focus. But I ground away a little bit of this to make it so it's kind of tapered, so it's not so sharp on this float, and I think that's what keeps happening is this thing. I think that thing was puncturing the float, and that's why I ground it down a little bit. Sorry the camera ran out of memory there and stopped recording. Yeah, you kind of got to go some goofy angles to get this thing worked in here, but I got it all reassembled. And I did replace those screws because these old ones, they were actually bolt type, and they didn't have these at the hardware store with these hex heads, but kind of worn away a little bit, a little corroded, so I decided to replace those. Let's go see if the gauge works. I'm going to guess this thing's got about a half a tank in it based on what I saw in the tank when I had the sending unit out, so here goes nothing. Alright, voila! Back to having a fuel gauge. I got that inspection cover all back reinstalled. Well, we're just over 10 minutes on this video, so we'll go ahead and call it a wrap here. Stay tuned for next time. We're going to change a school bus warning light flasher unit. We'll add some Blue Bird mud flaps, fix some seats, replace some gauges and a water temp sending unit, and uncover a mystery with one of the warning lights.